Genesis chapter 38, 창세기 38장. At that time, Judas left his brothers and went down to stay with a man of the Adulams named Hira. There Judas met the daughters of a Canaanite named Sua. He married her and lay with her, and he became pregnant and he gave the birth to the son who named Er. She conceived again and gave birth to the son and named him Onan. She gave birth to still another son and named him Shelah. It was at Kezib that she gave birth to him. Judah got a wife for Era, his firstborn, and his name was Tamar. But Era, Judah's firstborn, was weak in the Lord's sight, so the Lord put him to death. And then Judah said to Onan, lie with your brother's wife and fulfills your duty to her as a brother-in-law to produce offspring for your brothers. But Onan knew that the offspring would not be his, so whenever he lay with his brother's wife, he speared his semen on the ground to keep from producing offspring for his brothers. What he did was wicked in the Lord's sight, so he put them in the pit also. Judah said to his daughters-in-law, Tamar, live as widows in your father's house until my son Shelah grow up. For he thought he may die too, just like his brothers. Tamar went live in her father's house. After a long time, Judah's wife, the daughters of Shuaz, died. When Judah and covered from his grief, he went up to the Timnah, to the men who were shearing his sheep, and his friend Hirad the Adulmanite went with him. When Tamar was told, your father-in-law is on his way to Timor to shear his sheep, she took off the widow's clothes, covered herself with this veil to disguise herself, and then sat down at the entrance to the Enaim, which is the road to Tamid, for he saw that those Shelah had now grown up, she had not been given him to his wife. Then Judah saw her, he thought she was a prostitute, for he had covered her face, nor realized that she was the daughter-in-law. He went over to her by the roadside and said, come now, let me sleep with you, and what will you give me to sleep with you? She asked. I will send you the young goats from my flocks. He said, will you give me something please until you send it? She asked. He asked, what please should I give you? Your seals and the cord and the staff in your hand. She answered. So he gave them to her and slept with hers, and she became pregnant by him. After he left, she took off her veil and put the widow's clothes again. Meanwhile, Judah sent the young goat by his friend the Adulmanite in order to get the pledges back from the woman's butt. He did not find her. He asked the man who lived there, where is the shrine? Precious, who was beside the road at the Anaim. There hasn't been any shrine. Precious is there. Here, so they said. He went back to Judah and said, I didn't find her. Besides the man who lived there, there hasn't been any shrine. Precious is there. Then Judah said, let her keep what she has, or we will become a livestock. After all, I sent her this young goat, but you didn't find her. About 3 months later, Judah was told, your daughter-in-law Tamar is guilty of prostitution, and the result, she is now pregnant. Judah said, bring her out and give her a burn to death. As she was going to brought out, she sent a message to the father-in-law, I am pregnant by the man who owns these. She said, and she added, see if you recognize whose seal and cord the staff these are. Judah recognized them, and she is more righteous than I, since I wouldn't give her to my son Shelah. And he did not sleep with her again. When the time came of her to give birth, there was twin boys in the womb. As she was giving birth, one of them put in his hand. So the midwife took her scarlet thread and tied it and on the wrists and said, this one came out first. But when he drew back his hand, his brothers came out, and she said, so this is how you have broken out. And he was named Perez. Then his brothers who had the scarlet thread on his wrist came out, and he was given the name of Zerah.